Have you ever called your child a brat? Lazy? Difficult? Bossy? Gezma Adima? It's time to stop. Name calling can be incredibly damaging to your child, to your relationship with your child, and even to yourself. And it can be a very hard habit to break, especially if it's something that you've been doing for a long time and a mode of expression that you resort to when you yourself are feeling very angry and upset. But in today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 effective techniques that will help you change the pattern of communication in your home so that you can all express yourself in a much healthier way. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Soraya. I'm a mother of 2 beautiful children, and here on this channel I talk about everything related to motherhood, children empowerment and social emotional learning. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss one of my videos. And in today's video I'm going to talk about name calling. Whether it's something that you're saying directly to them or you are complaining to a friend or family member about them and your children are in the same room, even if you may think that, they're absorbed in their play, they're not paying attention, they're not hearing you, in reality, children are incredibly perceptive and they hear a lot of things, and they're really good at pretending like they're not paying attention, but listening to everything that you're saying. And so hearing you call them those names or complaining about them can be incredibly damaging to children. And especially young children do not have this ability to step back and think, mom said that in a moment when she was really upset and angry and she doesn't actually really mean it. They don't think that. Children think that everything that you say is true and they believe everything that you say and they internalize everything that you say. I think it was Peggy O'Mara who wrote, what you say to your children become their inner voice. So, when you're calling your child difficult or bossy or a brat, then they believe that this is what they are, and they go to bed at night thinking that this is exactly what they are. And so this can really damage their sense of self-confidence and their sense of self-worth. Also, when you keep giving young children labels like bossy or brat or stubborn or lazy, then, they start to own that label, because since they already have the label, since this is already what you seem to have decided that they are, it's very demotivating. Why would they even try to prove you wrong, And so you will find that their behavior starts to align with the label that you have given them. So you're really not giving them any choice. And the last thing is, children are such good little learners, and everything that you do, they will start to repeat because you are a role model for them. And so if you have unhealthy ways of communicating your anger or your disappointment, like name calling, you will see that as they grow, they start name calling themselves. And, this is definitely a mode of communication that we don't want to teach our children because we know how unhealthy it is. My first tip for you is to avoid escalation. This is called being proactive, and what you want to do is really take the time to think about your triggers. What really makes you mad and pushes you to call names in the first place? And if you're not too sure what those are, then I encourage you to, start keeping a journal. Every day, write down in your journal what were the times that you lost your temper and what happened right before that. And after a week or 2, you'll start to notice a pattern and you'll be able to identify what are the things that really trigger you. For me, for example, 2 of my big triggers are noise. When there's too much noise and too many sources of noise making noise at the same time, I find it really difficult and I can really quickly become very tense. And also when my children keep grabbing my legs and holding onto my legs and I can't walk properly or move properly. Like anytime my freedom of movement is being restricted, I become very nervous. So spend the time to identify what your triggers are. And when you realize that you're in a situation where you are being triggered, you're starting to feel the anger come, you're starting to feel really upset, maybe you're already starting to form names in your head, It's time to de-escalate and remove yourself from the situation. I made a whole video about how to remain calm, and basically it's anger management for parents. So I will link it on the screen, and also it will be linked in the description box below if you want to go and have a look. It's a whole video with tips about how to manage with your anger. But basically, in this moment, when you're about to call your child or your spouse names, it's time to remove yourself from the situation, take some deep breath, go have a cup of water. As long as your child is safe, as long as they're not in immediate danger, it's okay for you to tell them, Mommy needs a minute, so stay here and I'm gonna come back when I'm calmed down. And then go into another room or another corner of the room and just, take the time to deal with those emotions. It's okay for you to have those emotions. You just need to deal with them by yourself, regulate your own emotions so that you can then respond to the situation rather than react to the situation. So be proactive and de-escalate before it's too late. Hey people, I was just chilling with the plants and I remembered something else I wanted to say. Sometimes when you're having these really strong emotions of anger or frustration, you need to let them out before you're able to respond, effectively to the situation. So if you're feeling really frustrated and angry with your kid, one way to let all of these emotions out is to vent, and you can do that to someone else. So you need to make sure that your child doesn't hear you. So you could go into another room, call your best friend, call your mom, call someone you trust who will be able to listen to you, listen to how you feel so that you can let it all out. Or another very effective way is if you write it down. So if something is really frustrating you, even if you want to write down the names that you want to call your child, go and write them down on a piece of paper and then just get rid of it, like throw it away. And as you're getting rid of it, you're getting rid of your anger. And once you've done that, you will usually feel better and be better able to respond to the situation. Tip number 2, consider the consequences. When I'm about to say something very hurtful to my child or to my spouse or to anyone else for that matter, just thinking about them alone at night in the dark, feeling terrible and thinking about the hurtful things I said to them is enough for me to find the strength to stop myself. So if you're about to call your child names, think about the consequences. Think about how they're going to feel afterwards. Think about them alone with their thoughts that night, remembering all those things you said to them. My third tip is change your thought pattern. And if you're subscribed on this channel, then you've probably heard me say so before. But when your child is throwing a tantrum, for example, it's not something that they are doing to you. It's something that is happening to them. You always need to remind yourself, my child is not giving me a hard time, my child is having a hard time. See, you need to change the way you see the situation. If you see your child as the aggressor, you're thinking thoughts like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you giving me a hard time? Why are you always making it so difficult? And you see your child as the aggressor who is doing something towards you, then your response will be aggressive as well. But if you see your child as the victim of their own emotions, if you see your child as this helpless, tiny human who is overwhelmed by intense emotion and who doesn't know how to deal with them the way an adult would, and so suddenly you see your child as this little creature that you need to rush to and help, then of course your mommy instinct kicks in and you want to support them, you want to protect them, you want to hold them in your arms and make it better for them. And so your approach to the situation will be completely different. I just want to share something that's happened to me very recently. So I was trying to make dinner and I was trying to get everything ready in the kitchen, and my toddler, it was the end of the day, she was starting to get tired, and so she became very clingy. She kept grabbing my legs, which is really a trigger for me. I really don't like it when she grabs my legs and I'm constantly tripping over her. It really gets to me, right? It really gets under my skin. And so she was whining and she was grabbing my legs and she was so clingy and she wouldn't listen to reason. I kept asking her to go and, do some coloring or sit at her chair and wait for dinner to be ready, but she just wouldn't do it. And so My first instinct wanted to become so frustrated with her and just be like, why are you doing this to me? I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to make you dinner so that you can eat and then you can go to bed and rest. So why are you doing this? And so this would be a moment when before I would have been tempted to call her names. But then I remembered that actually, her being so clingy and whiny is not an attack towards me or is not, intended to annoy me or frustrate me, but it's because she's so overwhelmed with feeling really tired and she doesn't know how to deal with this fatigue. And all she knows, she's a little toddler, she's 3 years old. All she knows is that she's feeling really uncomfortable. And when she feels really uncomfortable, she does what all young children do. She asks her mommy for help. But, she's not mature enough to tell me, I'm tired, I need you to help me deal with this emotion that I'm going through right now. Instead, she's going to whine and grab my legs. So once I started seeing the situation through that lens, I turned to her and I said, Emma, I can see that you are tired and that you really need a big cuddle and actually probably to go to rest right now, but I need to finish making food. Should I fill your little love tank so that you have enough love in your tank to wait until I'm finished making dinner? She said yes. And I gave her a big hug. And as I was giving her a hug, I make the noise of the tank filling up with love. And then I stopped and I told her, is your love tank full now? And she said, no, it's not full yet. So I gave her another hug, kept making the noise of the little tank filling up. And then I told her, what about now? Is it full? And she said, yes. And then, to my surprise, she went and she sat on her chair and she waited for me to finish making dinner. And that's how the situation was resolved. So it's really important that you switch the lens with which you're looking at the situation. Instead of looking at the situation as your child is being the aggressor who is making things difficult for you, you need to look at the situation as your child is going through some stuff. They are struggling and they need your help. I'm sitting here to look cool, but in reality, I can't play. My fourth tip for you is to focus on the behavior rather than on the character. You see, all of this is not to say that you shouldn't be upset with something that your child is doing. Of course, there are times when your child is, having a behavior that is not acceptable and it's okay for you to be upset with it. But when you talk to them about it, you need to focus on talking about the behavior, not your child's character. Your child is not being a brat. Your child really wanted that toy in the supermarket and is having a hard time letting it go, having a hard time dealing with the frustration of not having what they want. And it's a learning process for them. And that's what's amazing about talking about behavior is that, when you're talking about a behavior, it's something that you can improve. It's something that you can work on. You can talk about it calmly with your child and you can both think together about strategies to improve that behavior. Whereas if you're talking about a character trait, there's not much you can do about it, is there? What can you do about bossy or stubborn? You can't change it, you can't work on it. And so not only is it a harsh judgment for your child, but also it's, there's no hope there. There's nothing you can change. Think about yourself, you're watching this video maybe because you have been struggling with calling your child names, but you're not a bad person, you're not a horrible mom, you just need to learn a healthier way to communicate your feelings with your children. And so it's something that you can and are working on to improve yourself so that you can change the behavior. But if you've just decided from the beginning that you are a bad person who calls others names, then there's nothing you can do about it and there's no room for improvement. And it's just, a world of depression. That's why switch your focus from character trait to behavior. Tip number 5, ask for forgiveness. Listen, when you call someone names, whether it's your child or your partner or whomever, you really damage the relationship. And that's because the other person starts to feel so resentful for all the bad things you've said to them because it's been so hurtful and violent for them. So when you slip up and you call your child names, it's really important that you mend this relationship and that you work on repairing the relationship. And one very good way to do that is by apologizing and asking for forgiveness. And you can go to them and say, I shouldn't have said what I said. I'm so sorry. I did not mean that. I do not think that of you. Mommy's just really stressed and really tired, but it's not your fault and I shouldn't have taken it out on you. And I'm very sorry. I will not do it again. And I hope that you can forgive me. And so even very young children will really appreciate you taking that step and asking for forgiveness, and will really feel reassured that it's not against them, that it's not something that you think about them. It's really important to say those stuff. Don't assume that your child knows that you regret saying what you said and that you don't think those things. Go and say it to them. Say it to them that you don't think that of them and that it's not their fault and that you were wrong and that you are sorry. I have made several videos on effective communication techniques with children. I've made recently a video on how to remain calm when your kids are driving you nuts. I've also made a video on how to get your kids to listen without yelling. I've even made a video on how to assert your authority with a strong-willed child. So I suggest you go and check these out next, because all of these together will really help you to improve your communication skills as a parent, especially during those tough moments when your children is throwing a tantrum or they're not listening to you, and this is when your patience is really being tested. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day.